Boredom means that you have to do something yourself to get over it. You have to develop those internal muscles and go, I've got to entertain myself. I can't turn on a show. I can't play this game. I have to do it from something from within.
And we're doing short questions, no two-part questions, no speeches masquerading as questions.
Yeah.
And also, if we don't like the question, we'll answer our own question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Ryan, and just thank you guys for both being here and giving us this time to answer questions and give us the overview. Robert, you are inspiration to so many of us. I came to see you guys out actually in San Francisco.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
No, thank you. Sorry to hear your book with Sublime. You actually inspired me with the painting with the inner Athena. I think it was in the 50 Cent book. But my question is this. In 100 years, you guys talk about what are people going to look back. Where do you want your legacy? If we were to write you into one of your chapters or write you into, a theme like you have of all the great historians, which I put you as, where would you think of yourself as your legacy? Where do you want us to remember you?
Well, if people are still reading my books in 100 years, that would be absolutely fantastic, and the sense that, I wrote the book, The 48 Laws of Power, at a particular historical moment, the Clinton era, all the weird stuff going on, Wall Street, the early tech bubble. So there was a moment in history, and I didn't write about any of that. I wrote about Louis XIV, I wrote about Cesare Borgia, I wrote about Julius Caesar, all these weird figures in history. And so if I kind of transcended my moment and wrote something that people 100 years from now can go, that's still applying to me because people are still political, people are still weird, they play all of these weird games, and Robert described it. I'll be dead, I won't know about this, but that would be a fantastic thing that I transcended my cultural moment and wrote something that lasted. I would love that to be my legacy.
One of my favorite passages in Meditations is Marcus Aurelius goes, two things. One, you won't be around to enjoy your posthumous fame. There's people who strive to be remembered, forget they won't be able to enjoy it. And then he goes, it's also worth noting that people in the future will also be stupid and annoying and not appreciate things too. So the idea that you'll be vindicated by the future is also probably a fool's errand. So I just try to think about, did I do a good job? Did I say what I wanted? Was it the thing that I wanted to make? And am I proud of it? And I sort of leave the rest.
Very wise.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
we study your books, we don't read them. Thank you.
Go for it. You're up.
Hi.
Hi,
Ryan. So
may have to talk a little louder on that mic. That mic doesn't seem right.
Question is for you. Just a little backstory. My best friend, before he passed away in a motorcycle accident, he noticed how my life was going and gave me a suggestion to read The Shortness of Life by Seneca.
Right.
And like 6 months later, he dies.
Wow.
It took me over 5 years to actually get that book and read it. And there's this one sentence that never ever leaves my head whenever I am actually thinking of that I'm wasting my life away, which is like whenever you see a man and he has wrinkles and gray hair, he has not lived for long, he has existed for long.
Yes.
So I've been dying to ask you this question regarding what is to live rather than exist in that context.
Yeah, he talked about in that essay, which is one of the most beautiful things he ever wrote. He said, be sure that at the end of your life you have more to show for it than a large number, right? Because I don't think he doesn't mean like financially, like the number in a bank account. He means, you get 100 years, that's an impressive number, but what matters is, what you did with that time, right? So I don't know if I don't think there's some general rule of what it is to live, but the question is, did you do what you could do with the time that you had, right? To me, I think about, did I leave potential on the table? Did I leave opportunities on the table? Did I leave experiences on the table? Did I leave things unsaid, not in my work, but to people that I care about? So to me, living is just, it's in line with a piece of advice you gave me. I remember when I was thinking about leaving American Apparel, you said there's 2 types of time in life. You said there's a live time and dead time. Yeah. Dead time is passive and waiting and resigned, and a lifetime is embracing and living and doing. And I just try to, I'm not perfect at it. There's certainly been periods of dead time in my life, but I remind myself of that constantly, a lifetime versus dead time. And if more often than not I'm doing lifetime than dead time, I think that sort of cumulatively adds up to a pretty good number.
Yeah, I think of Leonardo da Vinci, who had a quote at the end of his life saying, when you die, it's like after you've worked really hard during the day, you've toiled at something, you go to sleep and you have this great feeling like you accomplished something. Well, when you die, do you have that same feeling? Like, I did something, I accomplished something, now I can die in peace. And I think the worst thing is, in life would be to reach the age of 60, 65 and go, God, I could have been so much more. I could have created something. I could have done what I said I was going to do. I could have written that book, but I didn't. To me, I tell anybody, if you're in your 20s, don't ever have that feeling. And it'll come quicker than you imagine. So, realize that you want to reach that end with a sense of, I did what I felt I could do when I was a child. I had these dreams and I reached them.
All right, next.
Sorry, Robert, thank you for mentoring. That saved me from a mediocre job.
Okay, you're very welcome. Where's my check?
I am like you, Robert. I straddle baby boomers and Gen Zers, and growing up from the boob tube to the smaller boob tube. It seems like my big concern, I have a daughter who's grown now, and she's managed to navigate it. The next generation doesn't appear to be the dopamine hit generation. We talked about it, you guys talked about it earlier, about how the future and where we're going with all this, but you guys as historians, I kind of want to go back and spend a little time because we learned from our past. Is that capable, is that even relevant in today's new tech generation where we're headed? So if you guys could just opine on where we're headed, where you possibly see we could be headed with chat, AI and everything else. Thank you.
Well, the way I look at it is the time that you live in is a resistance factor. It's like when you're swimming, you get stronger because you're moving against the force of the water. When you're weight training, you have the resistance of the weight. When you live in a cultural moment, there are all kinds of bad habits, obsessions, addictions that can happen. It happened in the 50s. Look at how people were smoking and drinking, etc. They exist. They're television. So you want young people to resist the times. You can make yourself stronger than I ever could have been if you develop discipline, if you work against all of the addictions, all of the sugar rushes, all the dopamine fixes that people are surrounding you with. If you cut short your time on Instagram, if you force yourself to learn a foreign language, if you get your children to play the piano, etc., they're going to be the biggest weirdo in their neighborhood. People are going to wonder what's wrong with that. But they are going to be the masters of the future. So use these bad times as a resistance factor to make yourself even stronger.
Hey guys, big night. I'm a little hesitant to ask you this question in front of this many people, but my girlfriend will thank me that I'm not bogging her down with it tonight. If I fell in a rabbit hole recently, like the Asian Apocalypse on Netflix, the Graham Hancock's talking about human history is much older than we think, much older than Egyptians, Sumerians, that humans were left hunter-gatherer society a long time ago. If you guys have ever fallen down that rabbit hole, and what do you make of it? And then, just because I am so curious, all the UFO, UAP stuff, because you guys think way more than I do, and I would just love to hear what you think.
I don't really know. I don't really understand.
I'm a crazy guy.
It's some sort of conspiracy theory stuff about UFOs or some counterintuitive or theories about whether the Earth civilizations are much older than we think they are. I don't think either of us are qualified.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, on the question of is there life out there, I read a great book called Aliens, that explains the unlikeliness of it. And if you look at planet Earth, they have all of what we call bottlenecks. So if the dinosaurs hadn't been decimated 65 million years ago by a meteor, none of us would be here. The world would have been completely changed. But there were about 50 of these bottlenecks throughout the course of evolution that had to fall exactly right for humans to be on the planet right now. So for that same process to occur on another planet, the odds are absolutely astronomical. But of course, there are an astronomical number of planets, so it's possible that 1 or 2 out there have that. But then to travel 8 billion light years, no person can live that long, so it can only be silicon life, robots that could ever travel that far. It was a very, interesting argument, but that's as far as I'll go there. Sorry. I hope that was, yeah.
Go for it.
Hi, Ryan and Robert. My name's Kate Intro. Ryan, I follow your research assistant Billy on LinkedIn.
Oh,
he recently wrote something.
Robert knows Billy.
Oh yeah, so it gets into. I'm going to get into my point. He recently wrote something about how the conversation he had with you, Robert, about why Ryan. I'm glad you talked about it. How Ryan was your best research assistant, and how everybody else that succeeded fell short.
Yeah.
And he talked about how you paused when explaining to him why that a lot of them didn't really grasp onto the idea of being interested in boredom.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering what your maybe deeper thoughts were on why people in their own creative acts, why they aren't interested in boredom, and maybe Ryan, you could briefly touch on in your own process how you kind of embrace boredom, and maybe why that made you stand out over time.
Well, boredom is a great thing in life. You want boredom. If you don't experience moments of boredom, then something is wrong with you. And the reason is that when you're bored, you have to develop internal skills for dealing with it. You have to learn how to, with your own mind, find ways to entertain yourself. And so the worst thing that happens are people go for instant gratification, right? We are animals that want pleasure in life. We are drawn to things that are pleasant, and we're not drawn to things that are unpleasant. But if you can deal with boredom, you understand that greater things will happen if you postpone your need for immediate gratification, right? So boredom is teaching you something. It's telling you develop your own skills. So instead of grabbing a video game to entertain yourself, when I was a kid, not that we were superior back then, please don't get me wrong, we had to invent games to deal with the boredom when our parents left us alone. We had to become creative and inventive. So you want to feel boredom. Boredom means that you have to do something yourself to get over it. You have to develop those internal muscles and go, I've got to entertain myself. I can't turn on a show. I can't play this game. I have to do it from something from within. If you listen to it and it will develop your character. If you listen to it and you learn the lessons from it properly.
I think also it's when you love it, when it's fascinating to you and exciting, it's actually not boring. So all the things that maybe other people thought were boring or they couldn't get through, I was riveted by it. Getting to listen to hundreds of hours of interviews was tedious in the sense that I'm transcribing it.
You mean the 50-cent tapes?
Yeah, but I found that to be fascinating. I thought I would tell myself, how much would someone pay to listen to this, right?
Yeah.
And what would a reporter be making of it?
Sure.
So you find different lenses to look at it
Sure.
that allows you to get excited about it, then it's not boring.
And if you have a terrible crap job, like I had so many of them, if you approach it that I'm learning about people, I'm learning about what I hate, I'm learning about people's weird psychology, that boring job flipping burgers suddenly becomes a kind of an education for you.
Great question. We got time for just a couple more.
Wow.
I know, I'm sorry. This is
Go fast.
Yeah. We'll burn through.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to say thank you because you've been such an inspiration to me and lots of people in this room. But here's my question. I know that writing can be super duper frustrating at times. So how is it that you tackle burnout and how do you get through that?
I mean, for me, there's the sort of writing process, and then there's the recovery process, which is, usually physical. So I'm balancing out the mental exhaustion with running or swimming or bike riding or walks or doing other stuff, right? So you take it as far as you can go in sort of one lane and one modality, and then you switch to the other, and it's this sort of hot and coldness of it that helps balance it out. So I know you have physical practices that you do. Having that, I think, helps you. You're not just sitting in a chair, just pushing yourself. You're getting out of the chair and doing other stuff that helps keep you going.
And it also helps to be extremely excited by what you're doing and deeply engaged so you can deal with the grind and the loneliness. Writing is a very lonely profession, you know. And so you develop all kinds of weird strategies and things like that. But being in love with what you're doing is a great way to get over the grind and the moments where you want to give up.
Great question.
Thank you. Just wanted to say thanks before I ask my question. I'm here for both you, 50-year-old. Appreciate you both. And your wisdom in books has helped me greatly in life. My question is in regards to virtue. You both speak of virtue. Obviously, there's the noble virtues that the Stoics speak of, and living with virtue to achieve eudaimonia, right? To live a well-flourishing life. And wisdom, courage, temperance, or discipline, as you say, Ryan. And justice, I feel like, is missing in a lot of the world. I think when Robert, you talk about figuring out where the world is today, I feel like a lot of that's what's missing is virtue. I just would love to hear how you both view that, how you both view these virtues, and eudaimonia, and your thoughts on that.
I yield to Ryan because he's the person who writes about those things.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote in The Obstacles Away, obviously, that these things we experience in life are opportunities, right? And when I was writing The Obstacles Away, I was much more thinking about it in a sort of a business context, a success context. How do you use this setback to come up with this creative idea, or how do you use this, constraint as a way to spring forward? And that's what that book is about. And that's Stoicism as a sort of success hack or strategy, which it is, and I stand by it, and I think it's interesting. But as I've gotten older, as I've thought more about it, and now I'm doing this series on the cardinal virtues, I think what Marcus Aurelius is really saying, when he's saying that, the impediment to action advances action, what stands in the way becomes the way, what he's specifically referring to is that every situation, good or bad, big or small, is an opportunity to practice one of those virtues, right? To be brave, to do the right thing, to be disciplined or strong, right? To be wise, to learn. And they're all sort of inseparably intertwined with each other as well. And so what I think of virtue, as we were talking about backstage, arete, the idea of sort of moral and physical excellence, as being what we always have the opportunity to do, right? So if you take virtue as this thing, this form of excellence, and then you go, okay, whatever I'm doing, wherever I am, whatever I'm experiencing, I have this opportunity to be great, right? To be excellent. That's how I think about it.
Robert, any thoughts on it?
No. He expressed it very well. So
Thank you both.
you're very welcome.
All right, we'll give you the last question. Sorry.
How do you know something you've written is too long or too short or not well edited enough?
Well, I'm guilty of always writing too much, but I work in chapters. I don't work in the whole book length. And I'm very attuned to the reader. And the worst thing is I'm going to be boring my reader with this. So I know when that chapter is 20,000 words long, it's way too long. It's starting to bore me. My eyes are glazing over. I've got to cut it. I've got to cut that chapter down to a size that I think a reader will be engaged in it, will be excited, will learn from it. The stories are taught. I don't like wasted words. I don't like wasted verbiage. I want it to be clean and compact and forceful. And when it gets to that point, then it's great. And unfortunately, with the laws of human nature, it's a 560-page book. And I didn't go out intending to write that. But the shock of it all is that book is selling really well. It's selling better than the 48 Laws of Power right now. So, I think it's more like...
I hope so. It nearly killed you.
Yeah, exactly. It did. Thank you. He's right. Like 2 months after I had my stroke, 2 months after writing about mortality, I faced it. But each chapter felt like it was right, and then it was 560 pages long. My books aren't meant to be read cover to cover, so I think I can kind of get away with that strategy.
I mean, you do have to be ruthless. You do your first draft, and you try to get it all down, and then you have to go, what's extraneous here? What actually isn't essential? And it's this process of winnowing and refining and reducing it down till there's everything that needs to be there, and there's none of the things that should not be there. And that's the hardest part, because writing is a creative act. So it's fulfilling and exciting and additive. And then the process of having to cut things that you were excited about, that you love. Stephen King talks about killing your darlings. It is a brutal process. And there's little tricks, like I sometimes keep a separate Word document, and I'm cutting stuff, and I go, I'm going to use that later. I'll use it in something else. I never touch it again. It's just a lie I'm telling myself, so it doesn't feel like I'm killing something that means so much to me. But I know that if I don't do it, if I'm not brutally honest and don't hold a firm line with it, I'm abusing the most important thing that there is, which is the reader's time and the reader's trust. And so, a rule is like, if you're bored by it, certainly the reader's going to be bored by it, but also, just when did you... 2 words when one will do, right? When did you make your point more than you need to make it? And just that is a brutal process that you do over and over and over again. Maybe an editor comes in, but it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part.
But then when you get it right and it reaches that point where you go, yeah, I finished it, you tie the knot and it's over, it's a great feeling. You know, you expressed it in a short way, and it's what you wanted, and it's a great feeling. And believe me, I have so many things that I've cut out. It is very painful, as Ryan says, but in the end, it's all for the good, because I want my reader to be as excited as I was when I was writing it. You know, as Robert Frost says, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. No excitement in the writer, no excitement in the reader. So when I reach that point and go, yeah, this is it, it's a great feeling. It's almost euphoric.